They left him to die on the 12th floor. F rank, 47 power points, against a creature with 400. The math left him no chance, except those 47 were a lie, and the creature realized it a second before death. A minute before that, Cho Kang-woo wiped his chopsticks on his pant leg and smiled. That very smile, like a news anchor before a report on a disaster. He said the flask of essence had cracked, that demons were pouring out of every crack, that someone had to be left as bait. Hae-jin didn't have time to open his mouth. Cho Kang's fingers were already tearing the guild badge from his belt. A quick snatch. The metal plate with his name and insurance number slipped into a stranger's pocket. Cho Kang-woo said he didn't want the badge found on a corpse, that the family would be paid as if he were missing in action, that it was cleaner that way, and he bit off a piece of pickled from a tin can. The six of them walked down the tunnel without looking back. One of the girls giggled. The echo bounced off the walls and returned. Black slime with the smell of burnt copper was already oozing from cracks in the stone. Hae-jin watched their retreating backs and counted. 6 people. The leader has 4,200 points. The rest have between 800 and 1,500. He has 47. A trashy reflective ability that copies others' techniques with 30% efficiency. That's what the registry says. That's what Cho Kang-woo thinks. That's what everyone who had ever looked at So Hae-jin thought. He said it quietly, to himself alone, that he would pay them back every last point. And this is where the strangest part begins. A year ago, on the 6th floor of this very tower, Cho Kang-woo wrote off his younger brother. Officially, demons. Officially, an accident. Officially, the body was never found. Hae-jin filed a report. The guild closed the case in a day. The guild head stamped it with the word missing and didn't even look up. She said the Cho clan was off limits, that he should be grateful for his job as a porter, that an F rank with 47 points had no right to speak. The folder with the evidence still under his mattress, if he returns alive. The creature crawled out of a side tunnel, 4 legs, chitinous armor, a mouth with 3 rows of teeth as long as a finger. Zammer's altar flashed. Class E, 420 points. The creature leaped. Hae-jin didn't back down. The silver ring in his pupil spun once. Absolute mirror. A Magema that the Academy's analysts had written off as trash. One that, after the day of the rift, had mutated into a conceptual layer. A claw strike slammed into his chest and bounced back. The creature flew back toward the wall with 4 lacerations on its own shell. Full return. The creature lunged again. Return. 3rd strike. The creature burst. The altar of measurement on the wall flashed. 47 points. Nothing had changed in the numbers. The mirror reflected even the very act of measurement. And the altar saw only what Hae-jin wanted to show. And he wanted to show 47. For now. He wiped his hand on his pant leg, just as Cho Kang-woo had wiped his chopsticks an hour ago. This isn't imitation. It's personality erosion. Every reflection leaves a shard of the stranger in the soul. The stranger's tastes, the stranger's habits, fragments of others' dreams. 87%. That's all that remains of the real him. If it drops below 50, he'll dissolve into the mirror. He'll become an impersonal, reflective surface. He'll stop remembering his brother. He'll stop hating Cho Kang. He will cease to be himself. That is why every reflection is a gamble. Power in exchange for himself. He went deeper into the floor. There were 4 more creatures there. He knew because he had been calculating routes for the squad for 3 months. The porter calculates better than the captain. The captain can afford to lose 1. The porter is that 1. The first one leaped out from behind a column. The blow rebounded. The creature folded in half. The second one jumped from the ceiling. The crunch of chitin. The third one spat acid. The spit spun in the air and burned a hole right through its own snout. The fourth one turned out to be smarter. It didn't attack. It stood at the end of the corridor and watched with 6 eyes. It sensed that it wasn't facing a victim. Hae-jin froze. The mirror doesn't work without directed aggression. He stood there for 7 seconds. Then, he picked up the tin can of radishes from the floor that Cho Kang-woo had thrown down as he left. He opened it. The smell hit his nostrils. The creature twitched at the scent and leaped. Return. The altar on the wall. 47 points. Hae-jin finished the radishes standing over the corpse. Sour. Too salty. Cho Kang-woo always buys the cheap stuff. And then he caught himself thinking that he knew which brand the man preferred. It wasn't from his memory. It had seeped through the reflection. Erosion. He tossed the jar aside. Ahead lay the climb to the 13th floor. According to the map, a mini-boss was there. Stone Leviathan, D rank, 980 points. And Cho Kang-woo was there with the remnants of the squad. The 13th floor was a dead end without clearing the boss. They were stuck. Hae-jin walked toward the stairs and did the math. The Leviathan had 980 points. The return would tear the D rank apart from the inside. And the Leviathan spits magma. The magma would flow back into its mouth upon return. Beautiful. He climbed the steps and heard a crash and screams from above. Someone was calling for help. It was a woman's voice, one of those who had giggled when they left him to die. He didn't quicken his pace, but he didn't slow down either. The staircase to the 13th floor was flooded with black blood. Not demonic, human. Hae-jin stepped onto the first step and by the squelching sound determined that the blood was fresh, about 5 minutes old. So someone from the squad had already fallen. He stepped onto the landing and saw the scene. A stone Leviathan stood in the middle of a hall the size of a hangar. The carcass was 12 meters long. Armor made of compressed rock. 6 legs. Its mouth was open. Heat rose from its throat. The altar of Zammer on the wall of the 13th floor glowed orange. The stone Leviathan, D rank, 980 OM. 2 men lay against the far wall. One wasn't moving. The other was crawling toward the exit, dragging a scorched leg behind him. 2 more stood behind a column, holding shields. Cho Gan-woo stood in front of them. His white cloak bearing the Cho clan crest was scorched in 3 places. His right arm hung limply. A number flashed on the altar next to his name. Cho Gan-woo, B rank, 4,200 MP. Stamina, 1 MP. 1. He was empty, drained dry. 3 waves of Leviathan's magma had sucked every last drop out of the Cho clan's golden boy. Hae-jin emerged from the tunnel and stopped 10 paces away from the group. Cho Kang-woo turned his head, his face contorted. He turned pale so quickly it was as if the blood had drained from him on command. He whispered that it was impossible. He asked how. Hae-jin didn't answer. Leviathan turned its head at the movement. A new target, small fry, 47 OM on the altar. The maw opened wider. Magma gurgled in its throat. Hae-jin stood exposed. Arms at his sides, no stance, no defense. The one crawling on the floor with a burned leg screamed for the stretcher bearer to leave. Cho Kang-woo said nothing. Leviathan fired. A pillar of magma as thick as a human torso struck Hae-jin. The silver ring in his pupil spun. The absolute mirror. The pillar of magma stopped a centimeter from Hae-jin's chest. It froze for a moment as if reality had hit pause, and it went back. With a coefficient of x 1.06, 980 OM of magma multiplied by 1.06. 1,038 OM of pure heat flew back into the Leviathan's maw. The beast wheezed. Magma began to flow from within. Orange light poured out through cracks in its shell. The Leviathan swelled and burst. Pieces of its stone shell scattered across the hall. Hae-jin covered his face with his hand to shield himself from the shards. Coefficient X 1.07. The Magma Shot template fell into the mirror archive. A heavy template, D rank. Now the archive held an attack worth 980 OM that Hae-jin could reproduce at any moment, if he wanted to spend that much from his actual reserve. The altar of Zamara on the wall clicked. With Hae-jin, 47 OM. The silence in the hall was thick. Cho Kang-woo looked at the altar, then at the remains of the Leviathan, then back at the altar, 47. A porter with an F-rank trash Magema had just destroyed a mini-boss that a B-rank Golden Boy couldn't finish off with a full reserve of 4,200. The altar read 47. Their eyes told a different story. The two behind the column lowered their shields. One of them swallowed so loudly that the echo bounced off the walls. Hae-jin walked over to the spot where Cho Kang-woo had been standing when he ripped the guild badge off him. A metal plate lay on the floor. Cho Kang-woo had dropped it while fending off Leviathan. Hae-jin's guild badge, his name, his number, his right to live in the system. Hae-jin bent down and picked up the plate. He hung it back on his belt. The clasp clicked. He walked past Cho Kang-woo without turning his head. Cho Kang-woo grabbed his sleeve. His fingers were shaking. He asked what that was. He asked how an F-rank had repelled a D-rank attack. He asked why the altar showed 47. Hae-jin looked at his fingers on his sleeve. Then he looked him in the eyes. Cho Kang-woo pulled his hand away as if burned. There was something in Hae-jin's eyes that Cho Kang-woo hadn't seen before. Not anger, not hatred, calculation. Hae-jin spoke a single sentence. He said that on the 6th floor a year ago, Cho Kang-woo had abandoned his brother just like this, and he walked toward the exit. The man crawling on the floor froze. He had heard it. Everyone had heard it. Cho Kang-woo opened his mouth and closed it. His media-friendly smile crumbled. In its place was the face of a man who, for the first time in his life, didn't know what to say in front of the camera. Hae-jin exited the 13th floor through the emergency exit. The light hit his eyes. Outside the Baekwa Tower, it was a warm evening. Guild cameramen with tablets were on duty at the entrance. One of them saw Hae-jin and frowned. He asked why the porter was leaving separately from the group. Hae-jin showed the badge on his belt. The operator scanned it. All clear. Status active. The operator shrugged and recorded the exit time. Hae-jin passed through the checkpoint and headed toward the eastern gate of the guild quarter. Identity, 87%. He checked it every time after a battle. Leviathan had left a trace, not a big one, but noticeable. An image flashed through his mind of a cave Hae-jin had never seen. Deep, with orange light on the walls. It was Leviathan's memory, the place where the creature had hatched. Erosion was weaving foreign memories into his consciousness. He pushed the image away and focused his attention on a single face. Brother. So Hae-min. 20 years old. He was 20 a year ago. 6th floor. 1,000 blades of the crane. Cho Kang-woo's signature technique. The body was never found. Case closed. Hwang Mi-ran stamped the file without looking up. Hae-jin remembered every detail. It was his, not someone else's. It kept him at 87%. Hatred was his anchor. He made his way to the staff dormitory, a room 3 by 4 meters, a bunk bed, a nightstand, under the mattress, a folder with evidence that no one had accepted. He sat down on the bunk and closed his eyes. The mirror archive now contained templates for 5 demonic attacks and 1 D-rank magma attack. Useless junk except for the magma. But the coefficient had risen, X 1.07. Every battle added to it. Every deflection made the mirror a little sharper. He needed stronger enemies. He needed someone who would strike. And he knew that Cho Gan-woo was contacting the clan right now, that he would tell them about the porter who had repelled Leviathan, that the clan would launch an investigation, that they would find 47 OM on the altar and calm down. Or maybe they wouldn't. Hae-jin lay down on the cot and stared at the ceiling. In a crack in the ceiling, he thought he saw his brother's face for a second. He blinked, and the face vanished. He said into the empty room that he would come for him, that he should wait a little longer. Somewhere in the Cho clan headquarters, Cho Gang-woo, the heir to a collateral branch, sat in front of a screen and replayed the footage from the altar on the 13th. 47 OM, the Leviathan blown up from the inside. 47. He pressed replay. Again. Again. His fingers left wet marks on the touchscreen. He reached for his communicator and dialed a number the porters weren't supposed to know. The Cho clan's punitive branch line. Black Crane Squad. He said they had a problem. The next morning began with a knock on the dormitory door. 3 knocks. Even. Heavy. That's how people knock when they're used to having the door opened quickly. Hae-jin opened it. Standing in the doorway was a woman in a blue jumpsuit with oil stains on the sleeves. Around her neck hung a pass with the inscription, Altar of Zammer Technical Services. Yoon Se-ra, 21 years old, artifact engineer, D rank, 1,100 OM. She stared at Hae-jin without blinking. Then she said that last night she had received an automated report from the altar on the 13th floor. Standard procedure. Every time the altar detects an anomaly, the technical service receives a log. She said the log showed a reflection of a D-rank attack by a source with a reading of 47 OM. She said that was mathematically impossible. A reflection with 30% effectiveness from 47 OM yields 14 OM of return damage. A Leviathan with 980 OM won't explode from 14. She said she'd come to ask one question. Hae-jin was silent. Yoon Se-ra asked what number altar was actually supposed to show. Hae-jin looked at her for 4 seconds. In those 4 seconds, he ran through 3 options. First, say it was an accident and the altar glitched. She's an engineer. She knows altars don't glitch. That won't fly. Second, say nothing and close the door. She'll send a report up the chain. An investigation would begin. The Cho clan would find out before they were ready. Bad. Third, the truth. Partially. He said that altar showed exactly what he wanted altar to show. Yoon Se-ra blinked. For the first time since the conversation began, she asked how an F rank with 47 OM could order altar what to show. Hae-jin replied that his Magema reflects everything, including the act of measurement. Yoon Se-ra leaned against the doorframe. Her hand instinctively reached into her pocket for a screwdriver. A habit. She twirled the screwdriver between her fingers when she thought. She said that if his Magema reflected the measurement, then every altar in every tower was showing a lie based on it. Hae-jin nodded. She said that meant no one in the system knew his true power. Hae-jin nodded again. She asked why he was telling her this. Hae-jin said she could send a report up, and in an hour, the Cho clan's punitive branch would be standing at this door. Or she could choose not to send it. Yoon Se-ra stopped twirling the screwdriver. She asked why she should choose option 2. Hae-jin said that a year ago, on the 6th floor, Cho Gang-woo had killed his brother using the 1,000 blades of the crane technique, and that Hwang Mi-ran closed the case in a single day. Yoon Se-ra gripped the screwdriver so tightly her knuckles turned white. She said she knew. She said she had calibrated the 6th floor altar after that cleanup. She had seen the records, the damage readings, the trajectory of the blades. The technique wasn't aimed at demons. The technique was aimed at a human. She said she had written about it in the technical report, and that Hwang Mi-ran had personally come to the workshop and confiscated the report. Hae-jin didn't move a single muscle in his face, but the silver ring in his pupil brightened for a moment. Yoon Se-ra slipped the screwdriver into her pocket and said that the report on the 13th floor would be sent out marked calibration error, standard procedure for anomalous data. No one would double-check. Hae-jin said thank you. Yoon Se-ra replied that there was no need. She said she wasn't doing it for him, but because someone should have done it a year ago and no one had. She walked down the dormitory hallway. Oil stains on her sleeves glistened under the fluorescent light. Hae-jin closed the door, his first ally, not out of friendship, out of duty. She had seen the truth about his brother and kept quiet. Now she was covering up his false data. They were both in this together. At noon, Hae-jin stepped onto the grounds of Baekwa Tower. A notice hung at the entrance to the clearing zone. Floors 14 through 20 are open for free farming sessions. Register via the guild terminal. Access category, C rank and above. Hae-jin walked up to the terminal. He scanned his guild badge. The screen flashed red. Access denied. Hae-jin, F rank, 47 OM. Insufficient level for floors 14 and above. He removed the badge. A snicker sounded behind him. 2 C-rank guild fighters were standing at the drinks counter, staring at him. One told the other that the porter had completely lost his mind and was trying to sign up for a C-rank sweep. The second replied that after yesterday on the 13th floor, this porter had apparently decided he was a hero. Hae-jin turned toward them. The first fighter froze. He didn't know why. There was nothing threatening about Hae-jin. 5 feet 9 inches tall, thin, unarmed, F rank on his badge. But something in his gaze made the C-rank fighter with 2,000 OM look away first. Hae-jin turned away and walked toward the side entrance to the tower. There is another way up, an illegal one. The service tunnels between floors through which the tech department runs cables to the altars. Yoon Se-ra had mentioned them in conversation. By chance. Or perhaps not. The side door was locked with a combination lock. Hae-jin entered 4 digits. The door opened. The code was standard for the tech department. He knew it because for 3 months he had carried spare parts for the technicians and they would enter that code in front of him without hesitation. A porter is invisible. A porter is part of the furniture. No one hides passwords from furniture. The tunnel was narrow. Pipes ran along the walls. Cables lay underfoot. The air smelled of ozone and overheated metal. 20 minutes later, Hae-jin emerged onto the landing of the 14th floor, from the backside, where the wall abutted the utility cabinet containing the altar's cables. He opened the grate and stepped onto the floor. The 14th floor was different, darker, heavier. The air pressed down on his lungs. The demonic density was higher than on the 12th floor. The altar on the wall glowed yellow, medium threat level, C rank. Creatures ranging from 1,500 to 3,000 OM roamed here. Hae-jin checked the coefficient, x1.07. If he parried a 3,000 OM attack, the return would be 3,210, more than enough. He walked down the corridor, quietly, steadily. The first creature found him 4 minutes later, massive, on 2 legs, blades instead of hands. The altar flashed. Class C, 2,400 OM. The creature struck with both blades, crossing them. Rebound. The blades passed through its own torso. The 2 halves fell in opposite directions. Coefficient x 1.08. The pattern of the paired cross strike was saved to the archive. Hae-jin moved on. He was farming, methodically, without excitement, like an accountant keeping records. Each creature added 100th to the coefficient. Each pattern went into the archive. Each kill took away a grain of his personality. But C-rank demons left a stronger trace than the small fry on the 12th. After the 4th creature, Hae-jin caught himself licking his lips before the fight. It wasn't his gesture. It was the second creature's gesture, a predatory reflex before the attack. Erosion. He noted it and suppressed it. 86%. -1 per session. Expensive, but necessary. By evening, he had cleared out 7 creatures on the 14th floor. Coefficient X 1.14. The mirror archive was replenished with 7 C-rank combat templates. Actual power exceeded 4,000 OM. The altar on the wall still showed 47. Hae-jin returned to the dormitory through the service tunnel. A note lay on the nightstand. The handwriting was neat. No signature. 4 words. Black Crane is leaving tomorrow. Yun Se-ra. She had warned him. The Cho clan's punitive branch was already on its way. Hae-jin didn't wait at the dorm. If the Black Crane arrived tomorrow, then the night belonged to him. He packed his things in 3 minutes. A folder with evidence regarding his brother, a spare flask of essence, the guild badge token on his belt. Nothing else. A porter isn't supposed to have any possessions. He exited through the dorm's back door and crossed the guild district along the maintenance route. Not a single camera on this route. He knew because he'd hauled equipment for the repairman for 3 months and memorized every blind spot. At 2 in the morning, he stood at the eastern gate of Ba Baekhwa Tower. The gates were closed. Night shift. 1 guard in the booth. E rank. 400 OM. A scanner at the entrance. Hae-jin held up his badge. The scanner read it. F rank access. Night sweeps are permitted on floors 1 through 13. The guard didn't even look up from the screen. A porter entering the tower at night. It happens. Suicides happen too. Not his concern. Hae-jin walked inside, but he didn't head for the stairs. He turned into a service tunnel and went up to the 14th, then through the central shaft to the 15th, 16th, 17th. Each floor was more difficult than the last. The 17th was a B-rank zone, at least 3,500 OM for every creature. Hae-jin emerged from the utility closet onto the 17th floor and stopped. The air was thick. The demonic concentration pressed down on his chest like a giant's hand. Crystals grew on the walls instead of slime, black, with red veins running through them, the raw essence of the rift, the very same substance the clans sell to humanity as currency. There were millions of them on a single floor. Hae-jin walked past the crystals without stopping. That wasn't what he was after. The first creature on the 17th floor emerged from around the corner. Upright, 3 meters tall, humanoid, 4 arms, in each hand a clump of concentrated darkness. The altar on the wall flashed. Class B, 3,800 OM. The creature saw Hae-jin and hurled all 4 clumps at once. The mirror activated. 4 hits, 4 returns. Coefficient times 1.14. Each clump returned with a power of 4,332 OM. The creature took its own attacks and crumbled to ashes. Coefficient X 1.15. 4 templates of concentrated darkness fell into the archive. Hae-jin felt something foreign stir inside him. The creature was smarter than the previous ones. It had been afraid at the last moment. The fear lingered in Hae-jin like a taste in his mouth. Dark, sour, erosion. 85%. He moved on. 3 creatures over the next 2 hours, each ranging from 3,500 to 4,000 OM, each exploding from its own attacks. The coefficient had climbed to X 1.18. The actual power had exceeded 6,000 OM based on the reflected value. Hae-jin calculated in his head. Black Crane, 4 A ranks, each around 30,000 OM. At a coefficient of X 1.18, reflecting a single attack would return 35,400. Enough to kill 1, but there are 4 of them, and if they attack simultaneously, 4 reflections, 4 returns. The math works, but there's a problem. Erosion. 4 A-rank reflections in a single battle. Each A rank will leave a heavy shard of personality inside him. Not a demon's fear. Full-fledged human memories, habits, voices. 4 such imprints at once could eat away at 5%, maybe more. From 85, he'll drop to 80 or lower. Thin ice. He stood on the 17th floor, surrounded by black crystals, and counted, not percentages of himself. Then he remembered his brother's face and decided that 80 was enough to remember. At dawn, he returned through the service tunnel. The dorm was empty. His things were untouched. Black Crane hadn't arrived yet. Hae-jin sat down on his bunk and closed his eyes for 20 minutes. Not sleep. A concentration technique his analytics mentor had taught him. Clearing his working memory. A porter's habit. 20 minutes later, he opened his eyes and caught himself sitting with his back perfectly straight. Not his posture. The third creature from the 17th floor had sat like that before jumping. Back like a string. Readiness. He relaxed his muscles and slowly slumped back into the porter's posture. His posture. 85%. At 9 in the morning, he was standing at the entrance to the tower when he saw 4 black silhouettes on the road leading to the guild quarter. Long cloaks, cranes with outstretched wings embroidered on their backs. The Black Crane. The punitive branch of the Cho clan. 4 A ranks. Hae-jin didn't know their names, but he knew their function. Cleaning up problems. When someone in the system sees what they shouldn't or does what they aren't supposed to, the Cho clan sends the cranes. They entered the guild district not through the gate, but straight through the wall. The first one struck it with his palm, and the stone parted like water. 30,000 OM. The wall didn't even crack. It simply ceased to be a wall. Hae-jin stood at the entrance to the tower 60 meters away and watched. The 4 walked toward the dormitory. He was no longer there. He had moved the folder with the evidence to the hiding place Yoon Se-ra had shown him, a technical niche behind the 3rd altar on the 6th floor. No one checks the contents of the altars except the technicians. 10 minutes later, the 4 of them came out of the dormitory. Empty. One of them took out a communicator. He was talking to someone. Hae-jin read 2 words from his lips. The tower. Inside. They knew he was in the tower, or they suspected it. The 4 turned toward the entrance. Hae-jin was already inside, in the service tunnel between the 14th and 15th floors. He wasn't hiding. He was waiting. The difference is that someone who's hiding doesn't want to be found. Hae-jin wanted to be found, but on his terms, on his floor. He went up to the 18th, the upper segment B rank zone. Creatures ranging from 4 to 5,000 OM. He stepped out of the utility closet and heard footsteps below. A group of 4 was coming up the main stairs. Quickly. A ranks don't waste time on reconnaissance. They are the reconnaissance. Hae-jin took out 1 creature on the 18th floor while he waited. Multiplier times 1.19. Then he heard the stairwell door swing open. The first of the cranes entered the floor. A woman. Tall, narrow face. Her coat buttoned up to her throat. She saw Hae-jin and stopped. 3 others stood behind her. The woman took a crystal token out of her pocket and held it up. The token flashed blue and projected a hologram. Hae-jin's face, name, rank, 47 OM. She said that by order of a branch of the Cho clan, Porter So Hae-jin was being detained for questioning regarding the unauthorized use of anomalous Magema inside the Baekwa Tower. Hae-jin stood calmly. He said he refused. The woman tilted her head slightly, like a bird, a crane. She said it was not a request. Hae-jin said he knew. The woman struck first. 30,000 OM concentrated in a single palm strike. The air exploded. The silver ring in Hae-jin's pupil spun. The blow stopped and went back. 35,700 OM. The woman was knocked back into the wall. The wall cracked. She fell out of the dent and landed on one knee. blood from her nose. Her eyes were wide, like a person who had seen the ground beneath their feet shift aside. The three behind her didn't move. They looked at the altar on wall, with Hae-jin, 47 OM. One of the cranes said quietly that the altar was broken. Yoon Se-ra stood in her workshop and listened through the technical communication line she had extended to the altar on the 18th floor an hour ago. She heard the impact. She heard A-rang slam into the wall, and she heard the altar beep and display 47. She clenched the screwdriver and whispered that it wasn't the altar that was broken. It was everything else that wasn't working right. The woman rose from her knees and wiped the blood from her lip with the back of her hand. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't angry. Her face bore the expression of a professional who had recalculated the parameters of the mission. She told the others that Alter was lying, that the target's actual reading was unknown, that protocol was changing from capture to elimination. 3 cranes lined up. The woman took her position on the right. 4 A ranks against a single man with an F rank badge on the pawa of the tower. The left crane struck first. Technique, piercing whirlwind. A spiral of compressed air as thick as a fist, piercing concrete like paper. 32,000 OM. The mirror activated. Rebound. 38,080 OM slammed back into the left crane. He managed to put up a block. His hands crossed in front of his chest. The block absorbed 20,000. The remaining 18 hit his body. He was knocked back 3 meters. He stayed on his feet but coughed up blood. Efficiency times 1.20. The second crane didn't wait. He stepped forward and threw out both arms. The black chain technique. 10 links of condensed darkness, each capable of withstanding a B-rank attack. 30,000 OM. The chains flew toward Hae-jin. Mirror, return! 10 links twisted in midair and wrapped around the second crane from neck to knees. 35,700 OM of compression. He screamed. Bones cracked. Multiplier times 1. 21. 2 A-rank templates were added to the archive. Piercing whirlwind. Black chain. Heavy. Expensive to use. But now at Hae-jin's disposal. The third crane was smarter. He didn't attack. He took a step back and pulled an object from his belt. A crystal cube the size of an apple. A suppression artifact. Hae-jin recognized it. They use these against A-rank prisoners in imperial jails. The cube suppresses all Magems within a radius of 20 meters for 60 seconds. It cost as much as an apartment in the capital. The Cho clan had sent it for a porter with 47 OM. That meant Cho Gangwoo had talked them into it enough that they didn't spare any resources. The third crane activated the cube. A flash of white light. The suppression wave expanded. Hae-jin felt the mirror react. Magema's suppression was a targeted effect. The cube was trying to jam his ability. It was aggression. Not physical, not magical, systemic. But for the absolute mirror, any targeted aggression is a trigger. The silver ring in his pupil flashed. The suppression wave stopped half a meter from Hae-jin, and it reversed. With a coefficient of X 1.21. The cube wasn't designed for a rebound effect. The wave of suppression engulfed all 4 cranes. Their Magemas went dark. 30,000 OM for each of them turned to 0 for 60 seconds. 4 A ranks became 4 ordinary people in long cloaks on the demonic floor of the tower. Without protection, without techniques, without a chance. The woman turned pale. She was the first to understand. She said she was revoking the order to destroy them. She said the squad was retreating. Hae-jin stood his ground. He could kill them, right now, without the mirror. He had templates in the archive. Leviathan's magma shot, concentrated darkness from the 17th floor, a paired cross-shaped strike. Any one of them would kill a weakened A rank. Hae-jin calculated. 4 kills. The Cho clan's punitive branch. This is war. Open war. For which he is not ready. The Cho clan will send not 4, but 40. Cho Tae-san will come out personally. 38,000 OM of the clan leader. Too soon. He took a step back. The cranes stood motionless. The suppression lasted another 40 seconds. A roar rang out from the side corridor. The creature on the 18th floor had sensed blood and the subdued Magems. The 4 helpless people were the easiest prey on the floor. Hae-jin turned toward the tunnel from which the demon had emerged. Class B, 4,600 OM. The creature burst into the hall and lunged at the nearest target, at the crane bound by the black chain. Hae-jin intercepted, not with the mirror, with a template from the archive. He thrust out his hand and a pillar of magma burst from his palm. Leviathan's magma shot, 980 OM from his own reserve. The creature took the magma in the side and flew into the wall. Not dead, but wounded. Hae-jin struck again. A template of concentrated darkness, 4 clumps. Another 3,000 OM deducted from his reserve. The creature crumbled. The 4 cranes looked at the man who had just saved them. An F rank, a porter with 47 OM, who had repelled their attacks, repelled the suppression artifact, and spent his own OM reserve to kill the demon that was coming to devour them. The suppression wore off after 10 seconds. The Magems returned. The 4 became A ranks again, but no one attacked. The woman looked at Hae-jin and remained silent. Her eyes were different. Not a professional calculation, something closer to confusion. Hae-jin said one sentence to her. He said to tell Cho Gong-woo that his brother was waiting at the Ascension tournament. The woman nodded. The 4 black cloaks moved toward the stairs. The second crane was still hanging in his own chains. 2 people helped untangle him. He moved with difficulty. 3 ribs, maybe 4. They left. Hae-jin remained on the 18th floor. Coefficient ×1, 22. Personality 83%, -2 for the fight with the cranes. It's heavy. 4 A-rank imprints settled in him at once. He could smell someone else's perfume. The female crane was wearing something floral. Hae-jin had never been able to tell perfumes apart. Now he could. He felt phantom pain in his wrists from the black chains. He knew that the 3rd crane was afraid of heights. He knew that the one on the left hated pickled radishes. Fragments of 4 other lives. He pushed it all to the edge of his consciousness and felt for his brother's face. So Hae-min, 20 years old. He was 20. The face was there. The hatred for Cho Gong-woo was there. 83. That's enough for now. He sat down on the floor, leaning against the wall, and closed his eyes. A thought ran through his head. Cold. Steady. If the Black Crane reports to the Cho clan that the porter repelled 4 A-rank attacks and a suppression artifact, then the clan will realize that the matter is more serious than an anomalous F rank. They will come again, with greater force, with Cho Tae-san, with 38,000 OM, but not right away. First, they'll think. Then they'll investigate. Then they'll plan. That's the time. 3 weeks, maybe 4, until the Ascension tournament. Hae-jin opened his eyes and looked at the black essence crystals on the walls. Then he looked at his hands, the hands of a porter, skinny, calloused from the boxes. These hands had just repelled a total of 120,000 OM. The altar on the wall showed 47. Somewhere below, Yoon Se-ra turned off the technical communication line and sat down on a stool. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, from realizing the scale of it all. She had served the altars for 6 years. She knew the altars never made mistakes. The altars were obeyed. This was the first time she had seen a human to whom the altars obeyed. She took a communicator out of the drawer and dialed a number she hadn't used in 2 years. A former captain of the Imperial Guard. stripped of his rank. Nam Do-hyun, C rank, 2,800 OM. He picked up after the third ring. Yoon Se-ra said she'd found someone. She said he should come and see for himself. Nam Do-hyun asked what she was talking about. Yoon Se-ra said it was about the promise they made 2 years ago when the Cho clan ruined both their lives. Nam Do-hyun was silent. Then he said he'd be there by morning. Nam Do-hyun didn't arrive by morning, but 4 hours later. Hae-jin heard his footsteps in the service tunnel between the 14th and 15th floors long before he saw his face. Heavy, steady. The stride of a man who had worn the armor of the Imperial Guard for 15 years and never learned to walk without it. Yoon Se-ra led him through the same door with the code lock. Nam Do-hyun stopped 3 steps away from Hae-jin and watched in silence. 34 years old, broad-shouldered, a scar across his left eyebrow, the hands of a swordsman, lean, calloused from a sword hilt, not from boxes. C rank, 2,800 OM. 2 years ago, he was captain of the 3rd Company of the Imperial Guard and refused to carry out the Cho clan's order to clear civilians from the Namwon district. The Cho clan wanted to demolish the district to make way for the new tower. The residents refused to leave. The clan called in the guard. Nam Do-hyun stood between his company and the civilians and said he would not fire on unarmed people. He was stripped of his rank within a day. His hunter's license was revoked. His letters of recommendation were burned. The former captain of the Imperial Guard had taken a job as a bouncer at a tavern on the outskirts of Baekwa for a third of his former salary. Yoon Se-ra knew him because he used to come to her to repair a cheap wrist-mounted measuring device. It was the only artifact he had left. Nam Do-hyun looked at Hae-jin and asked what Yoon Se-ra meant. Hae-jin said it would be easier to show him. He turned toward the tunnel wall. He activated a template from the archive. Leviathan's magma shot. A pillar of magma struck the rock and burned a hole 0.5 meter in diameter. 980 OM. Nam Do-hyun didn't flinch. He just narrowed his eyes slightly. The professional reaction of a former guard. He asked what Hae-jin's actual rank was. Hae-jin said the altar showed 47. Nam Do-hyun said he wasn't asking about the altar. Hae-jin paused and replied that he didn't know for sure, that his magma had no fixed ceiling, that with every reflection it grew stronger. Nam Do-hyun processed this in 5 seconds. Then he asked what Hae-jin wanted. Hae-jin said he wanted to enter the Ascension Tournament, publicly, legally, to break Cho Kong in front of the entire empire and retrieve his brother's body from the Cho clan's cryogenic storage. Nam Do-hyun crossed his arms over his chest and said that a hunter's license was required to participate in the tournament. To obtain the license, one must pass the qualification. The qualification is open to ranks C and above. Hae-jin is officially an F. That's a wall. Yoon Se-ra coughed. Both turned to her. She said there was a loophole. Paragraph 112 of the Tower's charter. Any guild member, regardless of rank, can apply for qualification if they provide proof of clearing a floor 2 classes higher than their current rank, without a group, solo. Hae-jin has already cleared the 17th floor, B rank, 4 classes higher than his official F. But Alter keeps the clearance records, and Alter shows 47 for Hae-jin. There's no proof he was there. Yoon Se-ra said that's where she comes in. She is Alter's engineer. She can download the raw data log before the mirror distorts it. There is a half-second window between the actual measurement and the reflection. The real figure passes through that window. She needs to be at Alter in person at the moment of the battle with a timer and a data capture device. Hae-jin asked which floor. Yoon Se-ra said the 20th floor is necessary to be safe, the upper limit of Baekwa Tower. the A-rank zone. Beasts ranging from 20 to 30,000 OM. If Hae-jin blocks an A-rank beast's attack and Yoon Se-ra captures the actual number in a half-second window, it will be irrefutable proof. Nam Do-hyun said it was suicide. He said that even if Hae-jin parries any attack, the 20th floor is the territory of the gatekeeper, the tower's boss, A-rank, 25,000 OM, a creature that cleared out by squads of 12. Hae-jin nodded and said that's exactly why he needs a swordsman in front, not to kill, to hold them off, so Hae-jin could choose which attacks to take and which to let pass. Nam Do-hyun spread his arms and said he was C-rank, 2,800. Against 25,000, he'd last 3 seconds. Hae-jin said 3 seconds would be enough. They went to the 20th floor through the service tunnels that same night. Yoon Se-ra carried a suitcase with data capture equipment on her back. Nam Do-hyun carried a sword, an old one, jagged, the only one they left him after his demotion. Hae-jin carried a jar of pickled radishes. Nam Do-hyun glanced at the jar and asked why. Hae-jin replied that it was a long story. The 20th floor greeted them with a pressure so intense that Yoon Se-ra started nosebleeding within 10 seconds. The A-rank demonic concentration physically weighed down on their bodies. Hae-jin didn't feel the pressure. The mirror reflected even passive effects. Yoon Se-ra swallowed the blood, wiped her face with her sleeve, and ran to the altar on the wall. She connected the equipment. The data grabber flashed green. Ready. Nam Do-hyun stood in front, sword in both hands. Hae-jin stood behind him. They waited 4 minutes. Then the floor shook. The guardian of the threshold emerged from the central hall. Massive, 5 meters tall, a humanoid figure in armor made of compressed essence. 4 eyes, each glowing blue, a hammer in his right hand, in his left hand, a shield. The altar on the wall flashed red. The guardian of the threshold, A-rank, 25,000 OM. Nam Do-hyun exhaled through clenched teeth. The guardian turned his head and saw the 3 of them. He identified the threat. The swordsman in front, the woman by the wall, a thin man behind the swordsman. The altar showed a total of 3,947 OM for all 3. Dust under his boot. The guardian raised his hammer. Nam Do-hyun took the blow with his sword. The jagged blade held for 1/10 of a second. Then it snapped. Nam Do-hyun was flung against the wall. 2,800 OM against 25,000. It's a miracle he survived. But he absorbed the blow for 1/10 of a second. That was enough. The guard swung the hammer at Hae-jin. The blow. 25,000 OM. A silver ring in the pupil. Return. Coefficient times 1.22. 30,500 OM returned to the hammer. The hammer cracked. The shockwave traveled down the guardian's arm into his torso. The armor made of compressed essence split from shoulder to hip. The guardian staggered. Not dead, wounded. 25,000 OM don't die from a single blow, not even their own. He swung his shield. Second strike. 23,000 OM, minus damage. Return. 28,600. The shield shattered into pieces. The guardian's left arm was torn off at the elbow. Coefficient times 1.23. The guardian roared. The sound was so loud that blood began to flow from Yoon Se-ra's ears. She didn't move away from the equipment. She stared at the invader's screen. The numbers raced by. The guardian struck a 3rd time, with the stump of his arm. 20,000 OM of despair. Return. 24,600. The guardian folded in half. The armor crumbled. The creature inside turned out to be frail, pale, almost human. 4 blue eyes went out one by one. She fell. Coefficient X 1.24. Hammer template, shield template, shockwave template. 3 A-rank techniques in the archive. Yoon Se-ra deactivated the invader. Her hands were shaking. She turned to Hae-jin and said she'd caught the window. Half a second of real data before the reflection. The invader's screen showed a single number. Hae-jin's real stats at the moment the gatekeeper's strike was reflected. 6,500 OM. Nam Do-hyun sat against the wall, clutching his ribs. He looked at the number, then at Hae-jin, then back at the number. He said quietly that it was B rank, upper B rank, from a guy with an F badge on his belt. Hae-jin walked over to the Threshold Guardian's body and bent down. A crystal lay in the creature's chest, pure, white, the Guardian's core. Proof that the 20th floor had been cleared. He picked it up and turned to Yoon Se-ra. Identity, 81%, -2 for 3 A-rank reflections. The Guardian had left a heavy mark on him, 4 blue flames in his eyes, the cold of armor on his skin, the sensation of a hammer in a hand Hae-jin didn't have. Alien. He pushed it to the edge of his consciousness. His brother's face. The name Cho Kang-woo. Hatred. An anchor. 81. Yoon Se-ra said the data was sufficient. The Guardian's core plus the real-world measurement log. Paragraph 112. Qualification for the Ascension Tournament. Hae-jin nodded and helped Nam Do-hyun to his feet. The former captain stood up, leaning on the shard of his sword. He looked at Hae-jin and said he needed a new sword. Hae-jin said he would get one. They went down through the service tunnel. At the exit of the tower, Hae-jin stopped. He gazed at the night sky above Baekwa. Somewhere on the 17th floor, his face was reflected in the black crystals of the essence. And for a split second, it seemed to him that the reflection was smiling differently than he was. He looked away and walked toward the eastern gate. Tomorrow morning, he would submit his application for qualification. The altar would show 47, and in his pocket would lie the core of the 20th floor Guardian and a raw log with the actual number. And someone on the admissions committee would drop their cup. The Qualification Admissions Committee occupied a hall on the first floor of the Imperial Academy. 3 tables. Behind each sat an official with a tablet and a seal. A line of 20 people stretched to the door. A ranks, B ranks, all in their clan's uniform cloaks, crests on their backs, confident faces, high numbers. Hae-jin was the last to join the line. He wore a jacket without crests, a guild badge on his belt, a badge marked F rank and the number 47. Nam Do-hyun stood beside him. No sword, no uniform, a scar across his eyebrow. Yoon Se-ra stayed outside. Her part was done. The data was recorded on a crystal and lay in Hae-jin's pocket along with the Guardian's core. The line moved quickly. Everyone stepped up. They placed their mark on the altar. The altar of measurement on the table read their rank. An official recorded it. A stamp. Next. When there were 3 people left before Hae-jin, the guy in front of him glanced back. B rank. 3,600 OM. The Yoon clan crest on his shoulder. He looked at Hae and smirked. He asked if the porter had gotten lost. Hae-jin didn't answer. The guy snorted and turned away. Nam Do-hyun didn't answer either, but his hand twitched slightly toward his hip, where his sword used to hang. Old habit. Hae-jin approached the table. The official looked up. He saw the badge. His expression didn't change. A professional. He told him to place the mark. Hae-jin placed it. The altar on the table flashed. So, Hae-jin, F rank, 47 OM. The official looked at the screen, then at Hae-jin, then back at the screen. He said that the minimum requirement for the qualification was C rank, that F rank wouldn't pass, that it was the next one's turn. Hae-jin placed the Threshold Guardian's core on the table. A white crystal the size of a fist glowed on the dark surface of the table like a small moon. The official froze. He recognized the core. Everyone who had worked with the towers knew what the Threshold Guardian core from the 20th floor looked like. A-rank boss. He asked where it came from. Hae-jin placed a recording crystal next to the core. He said it was raw data from the altar on the 20th floor, recorded by a licensed technical engineer. Paragraph 112 of the tower's charter. A solo clear of a floor 2 classes above one's current rank grants the right to submit a report regardless of official metrics. The official took the recording crystal. He inserted it into the reader. The screen displayed the log. Attack reflection. 25,000 OM of incoming damage. Real-time target reading in a half-second window. 6,500 horsepower. Source: So Hae-jin. The official took off his glasses, wiped them, put them back on, looked at the screen. The number hadn't changed. He turned to the neighboring desk and quietly called the senior official. The senior official approached. He read the log. His eyebrows rose half a centimeter. For an imperial bureaucrat, this was like a scream. He asked how an F rank with 47 OM could show 6,500 in the raw log. Hae-jin said that was a question for Alter, not for him. The senior official looked at the core, then at the log, then at paragraph 112, which he himself had opened on the tablet. The law was unambiguous. A single sweep of the 20th floor, confirmed by the boss's core and the engineering log. 2 classes higher, 4 classes higher. Grounds for admission. He stamped the document with Hae-jin. Admitted to the Ascent Tournament qualifiers. Open category. The line behind Hae-jin fell silent. The guy from the Yoon clan with 3,600 OM turned and stared at the Guardian's core on the table. His smirk vanished. Hae-jin took the documents and left. Nam Do-hyun walked beside him. Out on the street, he remarked that the hall had been as quiet as a morgue. Hae-jin replied that this was only the beginning. The qualifiers were in a week. Open combat. 16 participants. 4 would advance to the main bracket of the tournament. Hae-jin didn't know who would be in his group, but he knew that the Cho clan would find out about his application in an hour. The Academy's office kept no secrets, especially when F rank follows paragraph 112. That's news. 2 hours later, it was confirmed. Yoon Se-ra sent a message to his temporary communicator. 3 words. Cho Kang-woo knows. Hae-jin wasn't surprised. He was sitting in a cheap noodle shop by the East Gate, eating black noodles. Nam Do-hyun was sitting across from him, drinking cold tea. He asked what the plan was for the week. Hae-jin said he needed fights, not with demons, with people. Human techniques leave a different kind of trace in the Mirror Archive, a more complete one, a more applicable one. At the tournament, he'll be fighting people, not monsters. The archive is crammed with demonic templates, useful but not enough. Nam Do-hyun asked where Hae-jin would find people willing to fight an F rank seriously. Hae-jin said there was one place, the black market for fights in the basements of the Namwon district. Illegal bouts without altars, without records, without rules. Bets on essence. Fighters from E to A rank. Nam Do-hyun set his cup down on the table. He knew Namwon. He had defended that district 2 years ago, before the Cho clan broke him. He said he would go with him. For 3 nights in a row, Hae-jin fought in the basements of Namwon. The first night, 4 fights, E rank, D rank, 2 C ranks. Everyone fought with full force because essence was at stake. The mirror reflected, the multiplier rose, times 1.25, times 1.26, times 1.27, times 1.28. The archive filled with human techniques, icy spears, iron fist, shadow step, gravity seal. Every battle cost a fragment of his identity, but human imprints were lighter than demonic ones, thinner, fewer foreign memories, more pure technique. The second night, 3 battles, all B ranks. One of them was a former member of the Pequot Guild who had been expelled for drunkenness. He recognized Hae-jin. He recognized the porter. He struck with a fury that had nothing to do with the stakes. He struck because a porter has no right to stand in the ring. The mirror returned the fury with a multiplier of x1.29. The former guild member smashed his back against the basement wall. The crowd around the ring fell silent. The bookie on the corner dropped a wad of bills. Nam Do-hyun stood at the entrance, watching the rear. He wasn't watching the fights. He was watching the spectators' faces. He saw their expressions change, from contempt to bewilderment, from bewilderment to fear. By the third night, bets were being placed on Hae-jin. The third night, one fight, A rank, a mercenary without a clan, 28,000 OM. He had come specifically for this. Someone had told him about the F rank fighter who was crushing B ranks in the Namwon basement. The mercenary stepped into the ring and looked down at Hae-jin. He asked if it was true that the guy could block blows. Hae-jin didn't answer. The mercenary struck. Technique, destructive thunder. A pillar of electricity from his fist to the target. 28,000 OM of raw power. The basement lit up white. Mirror, return. 36,400 OM of electricity struck the mercenary in the chest. He was thrown across the ring, through the wall, through the building's foundation, and out onto the street. He lay on the pavement of the Namwon district, smoking, alive, but unconscious. Coefficient times 1.30. The destructive thunder template was filed in the archive. Yellow, A rank, 28,000 OM when drawn from his own reserves. Hae-jin emerged from the basement. Personality, 80%, -1 for 3 nights, easier than expected. Human reflections left less erosion. But 1% is 1%. He stood on Namwon Street and felt the phantom taste of electricity on his tongue, a mercenary's habit. He used to love thunderstorms, a strange detail, alien. Hae-jin spat and walked toward the temporary lodging Nam Do-hyun had found. A room above a noodle shop, 2 beds, a table. On the table lay a note from Yoon Se-ra. Qualifiers the day after tomorrow. His group had been determined by lottery. 4 names. Seo Hae-jin, F rank, 47 OM, second. Park Jong-ho, B rank, 3,900 OM, the Park clan, third. Ryu Tae-young, B rank, 4,100 OM, the Ryu clan, fourth. Cho Kang-woo, A rank, 38,000 OM, the Cho clan. Hae-jin reread the 4th name, Cho Kang-woo, A rank, 38,000. A year ago, he had 4,200, B rank. Over the course of a year, the clan raised him to A through a forbidden ritual. They pumped him full of essence, a 9-fold jump. Hae-jin placed the note on the table. Nam Do-hyun read it over his shoulder. He said this wasn't a lottery, it was a setup. The Cho clan bought the draw. Hae-jin replied that he knew. Nam Do-hyun asked if he wasn't afraid. Hae-jin said that Cho Kang-woo had used the 1,000 blades of the crane to kill his brother, that he had waited a year to see that technique again, that the mirror had already opened a page for her in the archives. Empty, waiting. He said no, he wasn't afraid. The qualifying arena stood outdoors in the north wing of the Imperial Academy. The stands held 4,000 seats. Half were filled. Qualifying isn't a tournament. Clan scouts and bookmakers come here, not the public. But today, a crowd stood at the east entrance. The rumor had spread. An F rank with 47 OM had passed paragraph 112. The porter killed the 20th floor threshold guardian. Commentators in the box were discussing it even before the start. One said it was a clerical error. The second replied that you can't fake a guardian's core. Hae-jin entered the arena third in his group. The first 2 matches were between Park Jong-ho and Ryu Tae-young. B ranks, a standard match, 4 minutes. Ryu Tae-young won with the whirling wind move. Park Jong-ho was thrown out of the ring without serious injury. The stands clapped half-heartedly. Next match. So Hae-jin versus Ryu Tae-young. The announcer called out their names. When 47 OM was announced, a ripple of laughter swept through the stands. Hae-jin entered the ring. Ryu Tae-young stood opposite him. 4,100 OM. Young, confident. He looked at Hae-jin's badge and shook his head. He said he felt it was a waste to use his technique on an F-rank fighter. The arena altar on the central pillar flashed. Both fighters froze. Ryu Tae-young, 4,100. So Hae-jin, 47. The numbers hung on the scoreboard above the arena. The stands buzzed. Someone whistled. Ryu Tae-young attacked. Whipping wind. The same technique he'd used a minute ago to take down Park Jong-ho. A minute ago. 4,100 OM of a horizontal blade made of compressed air. A silver ring in the pupil. A mirror. The blade stopped in mid-air. It spun around and passed back through Ryu Tae-young. With a coefficient of X 1.30, 5,330 OM. 1,200 more than his own score. Ryu Tae-young doubled over. The blade sliced through his protective barrier and passed through his right shoulder. Blood spattered onto the white floor of the arena. He fell. Medics rushed into the ring. The arena altar clicked. The winner? So Hae-jin, 47 OM. The stands fell silent. Not the silence of laughter, the silence of incomprehension. 4,100 OM had just lost to 47. The altar confirmed it. 47. The commentator in the booth coughed into the microphone and said that apparently a technical anomaly had occurred and the altar would be recalibrated before the next fight. Yoon Se-ra sat in the third row of the stands, clutching a screwdriver in her pocket. The altar was working perfectly. She knew it. She had checked it yesterday. Hae-jin's coefficient, X 1.31. The whistling wind template had been archived. Personality still at 80. Weak against Nick. Light imprint. Next fight in 20 minutes. So, Hae-jin versus Cho Kang-woo. Hae-jin sat on a bench at the edge of the arena and closed his eyes. Nam Do-hyun brought him water. Hae-jin didn't drink. He listened. The stands were buzzing. People were discussing. Bookmakers were feverishly recalculating the betting odds. A scout from the U in the upper row leaned toward his neighbor and said this couldn't be an F rank. He said that reflection without loss of power was physically impossible below A rank. His neighbor replied that the altar showed 47. The scout said that was the problem. 20 minutes passed. Hae-jin stood up and stepped into the ring. Cho Kang-woo was coming from the other side. A white cloak bearing the Cho clan crest. A new one. Not the one that burned on the 13th floor. His face was calm. The announcers smiled. The cameras on the stands around the arena swiveled. It was already being broadcast. Not to the entire empire, only on the guild channels. But there was an audience. Cho Kang-woo stepped into the center of the ring and stopped. The altar flashed. Cho Kang-woo, A rank, 38,000 OM. Hae-jin, F rank, 47. The numbers on the scoreboard. 38,000 versus 47,000, a difference of 800 times. The stands fell silent. Even those who had seen the previous fight couldn't comprehend this difference. Cho Kang looked at Hae-jin and spoke, loud enough for the arena's microphones to pick it up. He said he was glad to see the former porter alive. He said there had been a mistake on the 12th floor and he was sorry. He said he was offering Hae-jin the chance to forfeit the fight and leave the arena on his own 2 feet. A public gesture of magnanimity from A rank to F rank. The cameras were rolling. The audience was watching. The media-friendly smile on Cho Kang-woo's face was flawless. Hae-jin stood in silence. Then he spoke a single sentence. He said that a year ago, on the 6th floor, Cho Kang-woo had used the 1,000 blades of the crane on his younger brother. The microphones picked up every word. The stands gasped. The commentator in the box froze, mouth agape. Cho Kang-woo stopped smiling. For the first time all day, his face went blank, empty. The the face of a man whose public image had been knocked off its pedestal. He said it was slander and that the case had been closed. Hae-jin said the case had been closed by Hwang Mi-ran following a call from the Cho clan, and that the altar on the 6th floor had recorded the trajectory of the blades aimed not at demons, but at a human. It was true. Yoon Se-ra had seen the footage. She would confirm it if necessary. But right now, it wasn't her they needed. They needed the camera. The camera was recording. Cho Kang-woo clenched his fists. His 38,000 OM began to hum. The air around him trembled. A-rank pressure crashed down on the arena. The spectators in the front rows felt it. People gripped their armrests. Some stood up. Cho Kang-woo was no longer smiling or speaking. He raised his right hand. His fingers fanned out. Blades flickered between his fingers. Thin, white, sharp as surgical scalpels. The 1,000 blades of the crane. The Cho clan's signature technique. The very one with which he had killed So Hae-min on the 6th floor. Hae-jin stared at the blades and didn't move. The silver ring in his pupil grew brighter. 1,000 blades shot out in a fan. White, thin. Each carried 38 OM of individual power, totaling 38,000. A full A rank packed into a single attack. The technique covered the entire arena. It was impossible to dodge. Only an equal or higher rank could block it. A year ago, this technique killed So Hae-min on the 6th floor. So Hae-min was D rank, 1,200 OM. He didn't stand a chance. The blades flew toward Hae-jin. The silver ring spun. A mirror. 1,000 blades stopped in midair, every single one, simultaneously, as if the world had hit pause. The stand saw it. 4,000 people, cameras on tripods, the commentator in the booth. Everyone saw how 1,000 white blades hovered half a meter from Hae-jin and began to slowly turn. Blades toward Cho Kang. Coefficient times 1.31. 38,000 multiplied by 1.31. 49,780. Nearly 50,000 OM of total return damage. The blades flew back. Cho Kang-woo reacted. His body remembered the fights. His arms rose into a defensive stance. He put up a barrier of condensed energy. 20,000 ohm of defense, the maximum he could muster on reflex. 500 blades shattered against the barrier. The remaining 500 got through. Cho Kang-woo screamed. Hae-jin heard that scream and remembered it. Not with the mirror, with himself. 500 blades pierced Cho Kang-woo's right shoulder, right arm, thigh, shin, and left side. He collapsed to his knees. His white cloak turned red. Blood flowed across the ring and pooled at his knees. The arena altar clicked and began displaying the battle data. Incoming attack, 1,000 blades of the crane. Power, 38,000 OM. Source, Cho Kang-woo. Counterattack. Power, 49,780 OM. Source of counterattack. So Hae-jin. Damage to target, 29,780. Source of damage, Cho Kang-woo. The scoreboard displayed the final line. Damage dealt by the attacker's own technique. Silence in the stands lasted 3 seconds. Then someone in the top row stood up. Then another. Then the entire top row. They didn't applaud. They didn't shout. They stood and watched. A scout from the Yoon clan in the top row dropped his notebook. His hands were shaking. He turned to his neighbor and said that the altar had shown a return with a coefficient higher than 1. That meant Hae-jin wasn't just reflecting. He was amplifying. His neighbor didn't answer. He was standing too. The commentator in the booth was speaking into the microphone, but his voice was breaking. He said that an F rank with 47 OM had just returned 38,000 OM of A rank equipment with a 31% amplification. He said he didn't understand what he was seeing. Yoon Se-ra, in the third row of the stands, gripped the armrest. She knew that Hae-jin was. She saw the numbers. But it was one thing to know, and another to watch 1,000 blades spin through the air and come back. It was beautiful. Terrifyingly beautiful. Nam Do-hyun stood at the arena exit, keeping an eye on security. If the Cho clan tried to intervene, he would be the first line of defense. 2,800 OM against whoever they sent. Not much, but it would be enough to hold them off for a few seconds. Cho Kang-woo was kneeling in a pool of his own blood. He raised his head. His face was ashen. He looked at Hae-jin with the eyes of a man who, for the first time in his life, realized that the world wasn't the way he thought it was. He whispered that it was impossible, that an F rank couldn't block the 1,000 blades. Hae-jin approached him. He stopped 3 steps away. He said the blades were the same ones, the very ones that had killed So Hae-min, and that now Cho Kang-woo knew what it felt like. Cho Kang-woo flinched. Something broke in his face. Not a bone, something inside. The expression of a man struck not in the body, but in his self-perception. He gathered the remnants of his energy. 3,000 OM, crumbs of A rank. He lunged at Hae-jin with his bare hands, screaming, without technique, without a stance, with nothing but rage. The silver ring flashed. The mirror triggered to the fury as if to an attack, but the threshold had been exceeded. Cho Gan-woo's fury was above a certain level. A figure materialized before Hae-jin, a perfect copy of Cho Gan-woo, with his face, with his cloak, with his 3,000 remaining OM, a mirror double. The double stepped forward and met the original with a punch to the jaw. Cho Kang-woo flew 3 meters and slammed his back against the ring barrier. The stand saw 2 Cho Kang-woos in the arena, one covered in blood against the railing, the other standing before Hae-jin in a pristine white cloak. The commentator fell silent. He was at a loss for words. The doppelganger stood there for 3 seconds. Then he crumbled into silver dust. The original lacked the power to sustain the copy any longer. Cho Kang-woo lay by the edge of the ring, motionless. Medics rushed out. The arena altar displayed the result. Winner, So Hae-jin, 47 OM. Hae-jin stood in the center of the ring. Coefficient X 1.33. The 1,000 blades of the crane template was filed in the archive. Complete. Detailed. The Cho clan's signature technique. Hae-jin now possessed it. He could reproduce it at any moment by spending 38,000 from his own reserve. Personality 79%, -1. Cho Kang-woo had left a heavy imprint, not rage, worse, narcissism. Hae-jin felt a foreign desire stir within him to smile for the camera. He suppressed it. He fixed his gaze on his brother's face. He crushed the foreign shard, but the shard didn't disappear. It lay on the edge of his consciousness, waiting for the moment when Hae-jin would grow tired of suppressing it. In the VIP box in the Academy's guest section sat a man Hae-jin hadn't seen. Lim Gong-chol, Elder of the Imperial Academy, S rank, 100,000 OM. He had come to the qualifiers not for the fights, but for the rumor about the F rank with paragraph 112. He sat with a cup of tea in his hand and watched the ring. When 1,000 blades spun through the air, his hand trembled. Tea splashed onto his knee. When Cho Kang-woo's doppelganger materialized, Lim Gong-chol placed the cup on the armrest, very slowly. Like a man who fears that any sudden movement will destroy what he is seeing. He turned to the assistant beside him and said quietly that the altar was showing 47. The assistant nodded. Lim Gong-chol said that he had just seen a conceptual reflection amplified and the materialization of a mirror double. and that the minimum threshold for this was the tier of concept. The assistant paled and said that the tier of concept was a myth. Lim Gong-chol didn't answer. He watched Hae-jin as he walked away from the ring. A number hung on the scoreboard, 47. An S rank with 180,000 OM knew that this number was a lie, but he didn't know what the true number was, and that frightened him more than any answer. A camera in the medical unit of the qualification arena. Cho Kang-woo was lying on a table. 3 medics were working on him. Cuts from blades, 3 broken ribs, a torn muscle in his right shoulder. He would survive. An A-rank fighter doesn't die from his own technique with a partial block. But he was out of the qualifiers, in public, on camera. Hae-jin didn't go to the medical unit. He exited through the arena's north exit. Nam Do-hyun and Yoon Se-ra were waiting by the wall. Yoon Se-ra said the recording of the fight had already spread through guild channels. 1,000 views in the first 5 minutes. 10,000 in 15. She said the whole capital would see it by evening. Hae-jin nodded. It was part of the plan. Publicity. The numbers on the scoreboard. 47 OM. Blades spinning in the air. The doppelganger. Everyone who watched the recording asked the same question. How? And there was no answer. Because the altar showed 47. The system confirmed 47. And the system doesn't make mistakes. Or maybe it does. This crack in trust in the altars was more important to Hae-jin than victory. If people start doubting the numbers, they'll start doubting the clans behind the numbers. Nam Do-hyun said that the Cho clan wouldn't let this slide, that Cho Tae-san would personally intervene. Hae-jin replied that this was exactly what he was counting on. They returned to the room above the noodle shop. Hae-jin sat down at the table and unfolded the Ascension Tournament bracket. Main draw, 16 participants, quarterfinals, semifinals, finals. He had passed the qualifiers. He was in the main bracket. Cho Kang-woo was out. But Hae-jin knew this wasn't the end. The Cho clan has the right to field a replacement in the main bracket if a qualified fighter is injured. Paragraph 203 of the tournament charter. Cho Kang-woo will return. Pumped up, recovered, angry. Yoon Se-ra connected to the guild network via technical access and pulled up the list of main draw participants on her tablet. 16 names, 16 ranks, 4 A ranks, 11 B ranks, 1 F rank. So, Hae-jin, 47 OM. He stood in the bracket like a 0 among thousands. Nam Do-hyun scanned the list and paused at one name. Kang So-yeol, A rank, 32,000 OM. The Kang clan. He said he knew this fighter, a former partner in the Imperial Guard. Clean, technically flawless, no dirt, no forbidden enhancements. 32,000 honest OM. He said that if Hae-jin faced him in the quarterfinals, it would be tough. Hae-jin asked why. Nam Do-hyun replied that Kang So-yeol doesn't attack first. He waits. He counterattacks. He reads his opponent. The mirror works by reflecting directed aggression. If the enemy doesn't attack, the mirror has nothing to reflect. Hae-jin fell silent. His first real tactical problem. Until now, every enemy had struck first. Demons, cranes, Cho Gang-woo. They all attacked. But what if they don't attack? He thought for a moment. Then he said he had the archive. Templates of others' techniques. Magma shot, 1,000 blades, destructive thunder. He could attack on his own, not by reflection, with his own power through the templates. Nam Do-hyun shook his head and said that Hae-jin's own reserve was his actual OM minus erosion, and actual OM only grows through reflection. If Hae-jin spends his reserve on an attack from the archive, he's using up what he's accumulated. It can only be replenished through reflection, a vicious cycle. Hae-jin nodded. It was true. Every template from the archive cost as much as the original. The crane's 1,000 blades cost 38,000 OM. His actual reserve was now about 10,000. He couldn't afford heavy techniques without a reflection. Yoon Se-ra raised her hand. Both turned. She said there was another way. She could calibrate the arena altar so that it showed a number other than 47. Any number Hae-jin specified. Hae-jin asked why. Yoon Se-ra explained. If the altar showed 2000 OM instead of 47 for Hae-jin, the opponent would see a C rank. Not a threat. Small fry. And they'll attack first. Even the cautious Kang So-yul will strike if he sees C rank. Because for an A rank, C rank means a 3-second fight. Why wait? Hae-jin was silent. Then he said that 2000 was too high for the first round. He wanted to show altar just enough so that the enemy would feel safe, so that he would attack without caution, so that he would go all in. He named a figure. 2000 OM for the main bracket, an official debut above F rank, enough to explain the victory over Ryu Tae-yeon, not enough to scare an A rank. Yoon Se-ra nodded and said she would prepare the calibration for the tournament's opening. 3 days. Hae-jin used those 3 days, not for fighting, for something else. He walked around the capital, alone, without Nam Do-hyun, without Yoon Se-ra. He was looking for information about the Cho clan's cryogenic storage facilities, about his brother's body. He knew that Cho Kang-woo was keeping So Hae-min's body somewhere in the clan's dungeons, but he didn't know exactly where. He didn't know why. On the second day, he found a lead. A former Cho clan technician was working as a night watchman at the Essence warehouse in the Jongno district. Hae-jin went to see him at night. The technician was old, 60 years old, E rank, 300 OM, long retired. He saw Hae-jin and didn't recognize him. Hae-jin asked about the cryo storage facility. The technician tensed up. He said he didn't know. Hae-jin said he knew the man had worked on sub-level -3 of the Cho clan's quarters from the 26th to the 34th year after the rift. The technician turned pale. He asked how Hae-jin knew. Hae-jin didn't answer. He knew because it was in the tower's technical staff registry, which he had been maintaining for 3 months as a porter analyst in the Baekwa Guild. A porter calculates routes. A porter keeps records. A porter knows everything, and nobody cares. Until today. The technician paused. Then he said that on level -3, there are 6 cryo capsules. 4 are empty. 1 contains the body of a demon general captured by the clan 12 years ago. The 6th. The 6th contains the body of a young man, about 20 years old. The technician said he didn't know the name, but he knew that the capsule had been installed a year ago on the personal orders of Cho Tae-san. Not Cho Kang-woo, Cho Tae-san, the clan leader. A rank, 38,000 OM. Hae-jin stood in the night at the Essence warehouse and felt the silver ring in his pupil grow hot. The clan leader personally ordered the body to be preserved, not the heir of a collateral branch. The leader. Why would an A-rank clan leader keep the body of a D-rank porter in a cryo capsule on a secure level? It wasn't a trophy. It wasn't insurance. It was something more. Hae-jin returned to the room above the noodle shop and didn't sleep until dawn. He sat at the table and stared at his hands. A silver ring glowed in his left pupil. The absolute mirror. A fragment of something he didn't yet understand. His brother lay in a capsule on the -3 level of the Cho clan headquarters. Alive, dead, frozen, preserved. Why? Hae-jin said into the empty room that he would be there soon. His voice was steady, without a tremor, as always. On the 3rd day, a notification arrived on his temporary communicator, an official one, with the seal of the Imperial Academy. The Ascension Tournament. Main bracket. Quarterfinals. So, Hae-jin versus Kang So-yul. Tomorrow. The capital's central arena. Live broadcast across the empire. Hae-jin read the notification and placed the communicator on the table. Nam Do-hyun asked if he was ready. Hae-jin replied that Kang So-yul would counterattack and wouldn't strike first. That the altar would show 2,000 on him. That Kang would see a small fish. and strike. And when he struck, the mirror would do the rest. Nam Do-hyun asked, what if he didn't strike? Hae-jin paused. Then he said that in that case, he would strike himself. From the archive, with a template, and receive the response on the mirror. 2 moves instead of 1. More expensive in OM. More expensive in erosion. But the result is the same. He stood up and walked over to the window. Down on the street, in the lamplight, stood a boy of about 10, staring at the screen of his communicator. On the screen was a recording of yesterday's battle, 1,000 blades whirling through the air. The boy watched with his mouth agape. Hae-jin stepped away from the window. Tomorrow the entire empire will see it. The capital's central arena held 40,000 people. Today it was full. Tickets for the quarterfinals of the Ascension tournament sold out within 2 hours after the qualifiers' recording reached 300,000 views. People didn't come for the tournament. People came for So Hae-jin, for the F rank with 47 OM who had spun 1,000 A rank blades in the air. The stands were buzzing. In the VIP section of the West Wing sat those whom ordinary spectators usually only saw on screens. Lim Gon-chol, elder of the Imperial Academy, S rank, 180,000 OM. Next to him, an empty chair, reserved for Princess Sol Ha-in. She hadn't arrived yet. Across the aisle sat Hwang Mi-ran, head of the Baekwa Guild, A rank, a glass in her hand. Opposite her, across the arena in the Eastern VIP section, sat Cho Tae-san, head of the Cho clan, A rank, 38,000 OM. Broad-shouldered, gray-haired, a stony face. Next to him on the podium stood a screen displaying Cho Kang-woo's medical data. The heir to the collateral branch was in the clan hospital. The cuts from the blades had been stitched up. His ribs were healing. But as he watched the broadcast, there was no announcer's smile on his face. There was emptiness. The commentator announced the quarterfinals. So Hae-jin versus Kang So-yul. So Hae-jin entered the arena through the familiar entrance. The same jacket without crests. The same badge. Only now, the badge didn't bear an F rank. Yoon Se-ra had recalibrated it. The arena altar recognized him and displayed his stats on the board. So Hae-jin, C rank, 2,000 OM. The stands erupted. Yesterday it was 47. Today, 2,000, a 42-fold jump. The commentator said that apparently the reading during qualifiers had indeed been erroneous and the participants' actual score was 2,000. This explained the victory over B rank. It didn't explain the victory over A rank, but it explained at least something. The stands accepted this as a partial answer. Lim Gon-chol in the VIP box did not accept it. He looked at the scoreboard and knew that 2,000 was just as much a lie as 47. He saw a conceptual reflection. He saw a double. This is not C rank. It's not even A rank. But he remained silent. Kang So-yul emerged from the south entrance. 32 years old, average height, a calm face. The Kang clan's uniform cloak. No adornments, no showmanship. A sword at his belt. Simple, straightforward, well-groomed. The altar was counting. Kang So-yul, A rank, 32,000 OM. The scoreboard displayed both numbers, 32,000 against 2,000, a 16-fold difference. The stands buzzed. Bookmakers had closed the odds at 20-1 on Hae-jin's victory. But those who had seen the qualifiers were betting on him. Kang So-yul stood in the center of the ring and placed his palm on the hilt of his sword. He didn't draw it. He just placed his hand there. Readiness, no aggression. Nam Do-hyun had warned. He's counterattacking, waiting, reading the situation. Hae-jin stood opposite him, 5 meters away, arms at his sides, no stance, silence. 10 seconds, 20, 30, no one moved. 40,000 spectators held their breath. The commentator whispered into the microphone that both participants were biding their time. 1 minute. Kang So-yul looked at Hae-jin and read him. Hae-jin could see it in his eyes. Arang analyzed. 2,000 OM on the scoreboard. But this man had turned Cho Kang-woo's 1,000 blades against him. The numbers don't add up. Kang So-yul isn't stupid. He'd seen the recording. He knew the scoreboard was lying, and that's why he didn't attack. A minute and a half. Hae-jin made his decision. 2 moves. He raised his right hand. A template from the archive burst from his palm. Not heavy, light, whipping wind. 4,100 OM. Ryu Tae-yeon's template from the qualifiers. A blade of compressed air flew toward Kang So-yul. Kang reacted instantly. The sword left its sheath. 1 slash. Whipping wind split in half and dissipated. 32,000 OM sliced through 4,000 like paper. But Kang So-yul did what Hae-jin had been waiting for. He went on the counterattack. After the slash, his body continued its momentum, a master's inertia. The slash flowed into a lunge. The sword moved forward, the rising crescent technique. 32,000 OM concentrated in a single arcing strike from bottom to top. A silver ring, a mirror. The arc stopped. The air burst from the pressure. The shockwave swept debris from the ring. 32,000 OM hung before Hae-jin's chest and went back. Coefficient times 1.33, 42,560 OM. Kang So-yul took his own blow. He didn't scream. He didn't fall. He raised his sword in a defensive stance and took the blow. 20,000 of the 42,000 passed through the block. He was thrown back 10 meters. His feet carved furrows into the ring floor. He remained standing. Blood trickled from the corner of his mouth, a crack in the sword's blade, but standing. The stands roared. For the first time in the entire tournament, 40,000 people were screaming not because someone had won, but because someone had survived. Lim Gon-chol rose slightly in his chair. Hwang Mi-ran gripped her glass. Cho Tae-san didn't move. Only his eyes narrowed slightly. Kang So-yul straightened up. He wiped away the blood. He looked at Hae-jin, and for the first time during the fight, he spoke. He said that now he understood why the altar was showing incorrect numbers. He said it wasn't the altar's mistake, it was an ability. Hae-jin didn't answer. Kang So-yul nodded to himself. Then he sheathed his sword. He turned toward the judges' table and said he was forfeiting the match. The stands gasped. 40,000 voices fell silent and then erupted again. The commentator shouted into the microphone that Kang So-yul, an A-rank fighter with 32 OM, was voluntarily forfeiting the quarterfinals. Kang So-yul walked toward the exit. Halfway there, he stopped next to Hae-jin. He didn't turn his head. He spoke quietly so the microphones wouldn't pick it up. He said Hae-jin didn't need to hide the numbers from him, that he wasn't an enemy, and that there were people at the tournament who were worse than the Cho clan. Hae-jin asked who. Kang So-yul answered with one word, the council, and he left. The arena's scoreboard displayed the result. Winner, So Hae-jin, 2,000 OM. Semifinals. Hae-jin stood in the ring. Odds, X 1.34. The crescent moon pattern in the archive. Personality, 79. Kang So-yul left a faint trace. Almost imperceptible. Calm. Discipline. These weren't the worst shards. Hae-jin pushed them to the edge and headed for the exit. In the VIP box, the seat next to Lim Gon-chol was taken. Princess Sol Ha-eun, third heir to the imperial throne. S rank. 145,000 OM. She sat with her back straight and watched Hae-jin leave. There was no shock on her face, no surprise. There was a smile, subtle, knowing. She turned to Lim Gon-chol and said that the mirror was awakening. Lim Gon-chul asked what she meant. The princess did not answer. She took a white azalea flower from her sleeve and placed it on the armrest of Hae-jin's empty chair, which was no longer there. The flower lay on the velvet like a note that had not yet been read. The break between the quarterfinals and the semifinals lasted 4 hours. Hae-jin spent them in a back room under the north stands. Nam Do-hyun stood by the door. Yoon Se-ra sat on a box of equipment and scrolled through data on her tablet. She said that views of the qualifier match had surpassed 1 million. The match against Kang So-yul was already approaching 500,000. A hashtag had appeared on the guild forums, 47. People were writing it under every post related to the tournament. 47 had become a symbol, a number that meant the system was lying. Hae-jin didn't read the forums. He sat with his eyes closed, checking the archive. Templates, Magma shot, 980 OM, double cross strike, 2,400, concentrated darkness, 3,800, piercing whirlwind, 32,000, black chain, 30,000, destructive thunder, 28,000, whipping wind, 4,100, thousand crane blades, 38,000, rising crescent, 32,000, and 12 more minor demonic templates ranging from C to E rank. Arsenal. Each template cost as much MP to reproduce as the original. Hae-jin's actual reserve after all the reflections was approximately 22,000 MP. He could afford 1 heavy attack from the archive, maybe 2 light ones, but after that, his reserve would be depleted and only the mirror would remain. The mirror doesn't consume OM. The mirror uses the enemy's power. Yoon Se-ra looked up from her tablet and said she'd found something. She had been digging through the technical department's archives while Hae-jin was fighting and discovered a file she shouldn't have had access to. A cryogenic storage log from the 3rd basement level of the Cho clan's headquarters. One of the clan's technicians had forwarded a copy to an external server a year ago and forgotten to close the port. Yoon Se-ra intercepted it during a routine check of the tower's network traffic. There was a name in the log, So Hae-min, status, cryostasis, vital signs, 3%. Hae-jin opened his eyes, 3%, not 0. His brother was alive, on the brink, hanging by a thread, but alive. Yoon Se-ra said that wasn't all. There was a note in the log written in Cho Tae-san's hand. 2 words, the other side. Hae-jin stood up. The other side. The other side of what? The mirror. His brother was the other side of the mirror. He didn't understand what that meant, but he understood that the head of the Cho clan knew more about his Magem than he did himself. Nam Do-hyun saw the look on Hae-jin's face and asked what was wrong. Hae-jin said his brother was alive. Nam Do-hyun froze. Then he nodded, with a single movement, like a man accustomed to receiving intelligence before battle and knowing that emotions come later. Hae-jin sat back down. He closed his eyes. His brother's face in his memory became sharper, brighter. With Hae-min, 20 years, alive. 3%. The flip side. The silver ring in his pupil flickered. Hae-jin sensed something new, deeper than the archive, deeper than the coefficient. Something on a level he hadn't touched before, like a door in the basement he'd always known but never opened. He didn't open it. Not now. The semifinals in 2 hours. The semifinals. So Hae-jin versus Moon Jae-hyuk. Moon Jae-hyuk, A rank, 35,000 OM. The Moon Clan. Earth-splitting technique. Close combat. Fists. Legs. Body. No ranged attacks. He only strikes point blank. Hae-jin stepped into the ring. The altar read 2,000. Moon Jae-hyuk stepped out to face him. Massive, 6 feet tall, arms like logs. The Moon Clan tattoo on his neck. A mountain peak. He looked at the scoreboard. 2,000. He smirked. He said he'd heard about the blade tricks, but that he wouldn't attack from a distance. That if you want to beat him, you'll have to fight point blank. The gong. Moon Jae-hyuk lunged forward, 5 meters in half a second, a fist to the face, 35,000 OM. Mirror, return, 46,900 OM into Moon Jae-hyuk's fist. His own fist broke from his own blow, every bone in his right hand, from the phalanges to the wrist. He screamed, but he didn't stop. Left fist, 33,000 OM, return, 44,210. His left hand broke. Moon Jae-hyuk stood before Hae-jin with both arms broken and looked him in the face. His eyes were glassy with pain, but something burned in them, stubbornness. He struck with his head, forehead to forehead. 30,000 OM, mirror, return. 40,200 into his own skull. Moon Jae-hyuk collapsed. Medics rushed out. The altar displayed the result. Winner, Hae-jin, 2,000 OM. Coefficient X 1.37. 3 close combat templates in the archive. Heavy, powerful. Personality 78. Moon Jae-hyuk left a mark. Heavy, stubbornness. The habit of moving forward even when the body is broken. Hae-jin felt his shoulders tense and lean forward. A fighting stance. Someone else's. He relaxed his muscles. Straightened up. 18% of someone else in him. Lim Gon-chol in the VIP box dropped his teacup. The porcelain shattered on the marble floor. His assistant rushed to pick up the pieces. Lim Gon-chol didn't notice. He was watching the ring, and his lips were moving. He was whispering. He was saying that the altar was showing 2,000, that the boy had just returned 3 A-rank strikes in a row with a 37% boost, that the minimum threshold for a stable, boosted reflection is upper A rank, that the boy is showing the altar whatever number he wants, that altar obeys him, not the system. He turned to Princess Sol Ha-eun. She was watching the ring with the same faint smile. Lim Gon-chol asked what she knew. The princess replied that she knew just enough not to interfere, and added that she advised him to do the same. Lim Gon-chol fell silent. Across the aisle, Hwang Mi-ran sat with a glass. The glass was empty. She hadn't had a drink since the start of the semifinals. She was looking at the scoreboard where the name Hae-jin and the number 2,000 were displayed. A year ago, she had signed a missing person under that name. A year ago, she had withdrawn Yoon Se-ra's technical report on the direction of the blades on the 6th floor. A year ago, she had chosen the Cho clan over the truth. And now, the name had returned. On the Central Arena scoreboard, in front of 40,000 spectators, in front of cameras broadcasting across the empire. She set the empty glass on the armrest, and her hand didn't waver. But a crack remained at the bottom of the glass. The Ascension Tournament final was scheduled for the next day. A 24-hour break. Tradition. The finalists prepare. The stands fill up. The Empire tunes in to the screens. Hae-jin spent the night in a back room under the stands. He didn't leave. Nam Do-hyun stood guard outside. Yoon Se-ra brought food and fresh data. The opponent in the final. Cho Kang-woo. Hae-jin wasn't surprised. Paragraph 203 of the tournament charter. Replacement of a qualified fighter in case of injury. The Cho clan exercised their right. Cho Kang-woo has been reinstated. Yoon Se-ra said he wasn't just reinstated. She had intercepted a fragment of a transmission from the clan hospital. Cho Kang-woo had undergone a second enhancement ritual, a forbidden one, with raw rift essence directly injected into his Magema core. His stats had risen. Yoon Se-ra gave the figure. Cho Kang-woo, A rank, 45,000 OM, a jump from 38 to 45 in a single day. At the cost of his health, at the cost of his future. 2 forbidden rituals in a year will burn out the Magema core. In 3 to 4 years, Cho Kang-woo will lose his ability completely. But right now, he didn't care. He needed a victory. Nam Do-hyun said it was a suicidal strategy, that the Cho clan was sacrificing its heir for the sake of a single battle. Hae-jin replied that the clan wasn't sacrificing him for the sake of the battle, for the sake of reputation. If an F rank publicly destroys the Cho clan's heir in the tournament finals before the entire empire, it's the end. Not for Cho Kang-woo, for the clan. The 7 great clans rely on the fact that their power is indisputable. If a lowly fighter defeats the heir, it's a crack, and cracks spread. Yoon Se-ra added something else. She said that all 7 clan leaders had been invited to the finals. All 7, for the first time in 8 years. And the Imperial Council of 7 in full force. This isn't a tournament, it's a trial. Hae-jin nodded. He asked Yoon Se-ra what number to show in the finals. She said it was up to him. He paused. Then he said he would show 8,000. Yoon Se-ra asked why exactly 8. Hae-jin replied that 8,000 was the upper B rank, enough for the stands to believe in growth, not enough for the clans to feel threatened, and exactly enough for Cho Kang, with his 45,000, would feel superior, so that he would strike first, with full force, with fury. Yoon Se-ra nodded and walked toward the altar. Hae-jin was left alone. He lay down on the floor of the back room and closed his eyes. He checked his identity. 78%, 22% foreign, shards of demons, shards of the cranes, a shard of Kang So-yul, a shard of Moon Jae-hyuk, a shard of Cho Kang-woo. Each lay at the edge of his consciousness, like a stone at the bottom of a well. He dove deeper. He felt his brother's face. Sharp, clear, alive now. 3% of life in a cryocapsule on the -3rd level. The other side of the mirror. He didn't understand what that meant, but he sensed that tomorrow's battle would tie the answer to the question. He fell asleep on the floor of the storage room and had a dream. Not his own, someone else's. He stood in a hall with mirrored walls. The reflections weren't his. In every mirror stood someone else. The demon from the 17th floor, the crane woman, Moon Jae-hyuk, Cho Kang-woo. Everyone was looking at him through their own eyes from his face. And in the farthest mirror stood someone else, a figure in black armor, huge, with horns. 4 eyes burned red. Magul. Hae-jin woke up. 4 in the morning. The ceiling of the utility room. Concrete. Pipes. Sweat on his forehead. The silver ring in his pupil glowed brighter than usual. He sat up and checked. 78%. The dream hadn't eaten anything. But Hae-jin now knew that Magul could see him. Through the shards. Through the erosion. The foreign fragments in his soul weren't just debris. They were windows, and someone was looking through them. He stood up, washed his face from a flask. He put on his jacket. The day of the final. The central arena began to fill up at 6 in the morning. By 10, there wasn't a single empty seat left. 40,000 in the stands, millions on the screens. The VIP section of the West Wing. Lim Gon-chul, Princess Sol Ha-eun, Hwang Mi-ran, the heads of the 6 clans, the Council of 7, the East VIP section, Cho Tae-san, alone, without an entourage, with a stony face. The commentator announced the final of the Ascension Tournament, So Hae-jin versus Cho Kang-woo, the second fight, a rematch. Cameras across the entire empire. Hae-jin entered the ring, the altar flashed. So Hae-jin, B rank, 8,000 OM. The stands roared. Yesterday it was 2,000. The day before yesterday, 47. Today, 8,000. A rise that defied all models. The commentator said that the participant was demonstrating anomalous dynamics and that the Academy would conduct an investigation after the tournament. Cho Kang-woo emerged from the south entrance, a white cloak, a new one. The third this week, a different face. Not the announcer's smile, not the loser's emptiness, something else entirely. Hunger, sunken eyes, his cheekbones were sharper. Two rituals of forbidden enhancement were burning him from the inside but gave him power. The altar calculated. Cho Kang-woo, A rank, 45,000 OM. The scoreboard, 45,000 against 8,000, a difference of 5.5 times, less than in the qualifiers, but still a chasm. Cho Gan-woo stood in the center of the ring and looked at Hae-jin. He didn't speak for the cameras. He didn't play the magnanimous one. He spoke quietly, so quietly that the arena's microphones barely picked it up. He said he knew about his brother, that Hae-jin was looking for a cryo capsule, that if Hae-jin forfeits the fight right now in front of the cameras, the Cho clan would return the body. Hae-jin stood motionless. 40,000 spectators, millions on their screens, the 7 clan leaders, the council, the princess, and Cho Kang-woo offered him surrender in exchange for his brother. Hae-jin looked him in the eye and replied just as quietly. He said he would take both his brother and the victory, and that Cho Kang-woo was in no position to bargain. Cho Kang-woo clenched his teeth. Gong! Cho Kang-woo struck first, not with the 1,000 blades, a new technique. Both palms thrust forward, between them a mass of white flame, the Judgment Crane technique, a clan forbidden art, passed down personally by Cho Tae-san for this fight. 45,000 OM in a single stream of white fire as wide as a man. The arena floor melted along its path. The air ignited. The spectators in the front rows felt the heat and recoiled. The arena's protective barriers flared up and barely held. The silver ring, the mirror. The white fire stopped. It froze in the air like a photograph of a flame. Then it went back. Coefficient X 1.37, 61,650 OM. Cho Gan-woo jumped aside. He remembered the qualifiers. He knew the strike would return. He was prepared. The white fire passed through the spot where he had been standing and slammed into the arena's protective barrier. The barrier burst. The stands behind it burst into flames. Security technicians rushed to put out the fire. Cho Kang-woo was already in the air. Second attack. 1,000 blades of the crane. The very same ones. 45,000 OM. 7,000 more than in the qualifiers. 1,000 white blades fanning out. Hae-jin stood in the center of the ring. A mirror. 1,000 blades stopped, turned around, flew back. Multiplier times 1.38. 62,100 OM. Cho Kang put up a barrier. 20,000. 300 blades shattered. 700 passed through. Cho Kang-yu took 700 blades to his body, but he didn't fall. The forbidden ritual gave him more than just power. It gave him resilience. Regeneration from raw essence. The wounds from the blades closed in real time. His skin fused back together. The bleeding stopped. Cho Kang-yu stood covered in blood and smiled. Not a media smile, a beastly one. He said that this time he wouldn't stop. The stands were silent. 40,000 people watched as a man took 700 of his own blades and remained standing. In the VIP box, Cho Tae-san leaned forward slightly. His eyes were burning. He had invested everything in his heir. 2 rituals, the clan's forbidden technique, regeneration. That was his bet. Cho Kang-woo attacked again. The third technique, the wings of the black crane. 20,000 OM, a long-range grab. 2 wings of dark energy extended from his back and lunged toward Hae-jin. Not a strike, a grab. The wings tried to wrap around Hae-jin and squeeze him. Mirror, return. The wings spun around and wrapped around Cho Kang-woo. 27,400 OM of compression. Cho Kang-woo wheezed. His ribs cracked. But regeneration was working. The bones were fusing as they broke. He tore his own wings apart with sheer willpower. blood from his nose and mouth. He stood. Fourth attack. Fifth. Sixth. Cho Gang-woo struck without stopping. Every technique came back at him. Every return broke him even more. And every time, regeneration pieced him back together. Hae-jin's coefficient rose. X 1.39, X 1.40, X 1.41. The archive was filling with Cho clan techniques, forbidden ones, ancient ones, techniques no one outside the clan had ever seen. Cho Gang-woo was giving away his arsenal with every strike, and he didn't realize it. After the ninth attack, Cho Gang-woo stopped. He stood in the center of the ring in a pool of his own blood. His were closing more slowly. His regeneration was running out. The raw essence in his core burned like coal on its last breath of oxygen. He looked at Hae-jin. Hae-jin stood in the same spot where he had stood at the start of the fight. Not a single step, not a single scratch. Arms at his sides, his face was impassive. Cho Gang-woo asked hoarsely what he was. Hae-jin replied that he was a mirror, and that a mirror reflects what is thrown at it. Cho Gang-woo took a deep breath. One last attack. He gathered everything, all the remnants, every OM, 45,000 minus losses, about 30,000. He poured them into a single technique, not a clan technique, a personal one, the one he created himself, the last cry of the crane technique, a sound wave, 30,000 OMs of compressed sound. The arena shook, the air turned solid. The wave moved toward Hae-jin, invisible but felt by every cell in his body. Mirror. Return. Times 1.42. 42,600 OM of sound struck Cho Gang-woo point blank. His eardrums burst. Regeneration didn't happen fast enough. His internal organs were shaken. He fell to his knees, then onto his hands, then face first onto the floor. Regeneration was still working, slowly, barely. He was alive, but he couldn't get up. The arena altar clicked for a long time, as if processing data. Then it displayed the result on the board. Hae-jin stood in the center of the ring and for the first time in the entire tournament allowed the mirror to show the altar the truth. Not 47, not 2,000, not 8,000. The scoreboard flashed. Hae-jin, 78,000 OM, Concept Tier T1, Conqueror of the Elements. Silence. Absolute. 40,000 people, millions on screens, the 7 clan leaders, the council, and on the scoreboard, a number that didn't exist in nature. 78,000. T1. For a former porter, for a rang, with the man wearing badge number 47. Lim Gon-chol covered his face with his hands. His shoulders trembled. He whispered that it was impossible, that these numbers didn't exist, that T1 was a myth. But the number glowed on the scoreboard, and it was no myth. Hwang Mi-ran sat with a glass in her hand. The glass shattered. The shards dug into her palm. Blood trickled down her fingers. She didn't notice. She was staring at the scoreboard, and her lips were moving. She was saying that she had destroyed the ladder he could have climbed, and that he had climbed without her. Cho Tae-san stood up, slowly, like a rock that had decided to shift. His stony face cracked. Not fear, calculation. He realized he had lost. Not a battle, a war. Princess Sol Haun sat with her back straight and smiled. The only one who wasn't shocked. She knew. She knew from the very beginning. Hae-jin approached the lying Cho Gang-woo. Medics were running across the arena, but Hae-jin raised his hand and they stopped. Not from fear, from pressure. 78,000 OM Tira concepts created a field that the human body read as a wall. Hae-jin crouched down next to Cho Gang-woo. He lay face down on the floor. Regeneration was still creaking along, closing minor wounds, leaving major ones. He was alive. Battered, but alive. Hae-jin rolled him onto his back. Cho Kang-woo stared at the sky above the arena with glassy eyes. Blood was flowing from his ears. Eardrums. He couldn't hear, but he could see. He saw Hae-jin's face above him, the face of a stretcher-bearer, the face of an F rank with 47 OM, the face of the concept's archer. Hae-jin leaned down and spoke, quietly, so the microphones didn't pick it up. Cho Kang-woo couldn't hear, but he read his lips. Hae-jin asked where his brother was. Cho Kang-woo closed his eyes, then opened them. His lips moved. He whispered, -3. The 6th capsule, headquarters, access code 4771. Hae-jin memorized it. He stood up. He turned toward the stands. 40,000 faces. The silence still held. The scoreboard read 78,000. Hae-jin looked at the VIP section, at Cho Tae-san, who stood with a stony face that had cracked. He spoke, loudly, so that the arena's sound system picked up every word. He said that a year ago, Cho Kang-woo had killed his younger brother, So Hae-min, on the 6th floor of the Baekwa Tower using the 1,000 blades of the crane technique. That the head of the Baekwa Guild, Hwang Mi-ran, had closed the case following a call from the Cho clan. That the technical report by engineer Altere confirming the trajectory of the blades aimed at a person had been personally seized by Hwang Mi-ran. He turned toward Hwang Mi-ran in the VIP box. She sat there with a bloodied hand and a shattered glass. Their eyes met. Hae-jin said that his brother's body had been placed in cryostasis on the -3 level of the Cho clan headquarters by personal order of Cho Tae-san, the clan head. He turned to Cho Tae-san. The clan leader stood motionless. Hae-jin asked the entire arena why the Cho clan leader was keeping the body of a D-rank porter in a secure cryogenic storage facility next to the demon general. The silence became palpable, oppressive. 40,000 people, and not a single breath was heard. Cho Tae-san did not answer. His face hardened back into stone. But the close-up cameras caught a microsecond tremor in his pupils, and millions of viewers on their screens. Hae-jin turned back to Cho Kang-woo on the floor. He said he would come for his brother, today, and that if anyone tried to stop him, he would show that person that T1 concept tier was not his limit. The medics finally rushed over to Cho Kang-woo. Hae-jin stepped back. The arena altar displayed the results. Winner of the Ascension Tournament. So Hae-jin, 78,000 OM, concept tier T1, multiplier times 1.42, 77% self, 23% other. After 10 attacks parried by Cho Kang-woo in a single battle, erosion took another 1%. The fragment of Cho Kang-woo had grown heavier. His hunger, his animalistic smile, his desire to win at any cost. All of this lay within Hae-jin like a hot stone. He pushed it to the edge, but the stone would not cool. Hae-jin was heading toward the north exit when a figure blocked his path. Princess Sol Ha-in. She stood in the passageway between the stands. S rank, 145,000 OM, a white azalea flower in her hand. She held it out to Hae-jin. He took it. She spoke a single sentence quietly. She asked if the mirror remembered who it was before it became a mirror. Hae-jin looked at the flower, then at the princess. He replied that he remembered. As long as he remembered. The princess nodded. Something resembling sadness flashed in her eyes. She stepped back. Hae-jin left the arena. Nam Do-hyun was waiting at the exit. Yoon Se-ra stood nearby. And standing next to them was a girl, 16 years old, small, skinny, huge eyes. Lines moved within her eyes, thin, silvery, like threads of a spider web, lines of probability. Baek Uri, F rank on the combat scale, a seer. Nam Do-hyun said the girl had come on her own. She said she saw lines around Hae-jin and that most of them led to death, but one led further, and she wanted to follow that one. Hae-jin looked at her. Baek Yuri looked back at him and said that today he was smiling like Cho Kang-woo. She said she didn't like it and told him to stop. Hae-jin touched his face. The corner of his mouth was slightly raised. A beastly smile, a stranger's. He tensed his muscles. He smoothed his face back out. Baek Yuri nodded. The four of them headed toward the Cho clan headquarters. Hae-jin in front, Nam Do-hyun on the right, Yoon Se-ra on the left, Baek Yuri in the rear. She whispered directions. She could see the lines. She said that two members of the Cho clan were waiting at the intersection 3 blocks ahead, that the one on the left had a paralyzing device up his sleeve, that the one on the right had a communicator on a direct line to Cho Tae-san. Hae-jin turned into an alley and went around the intersection. Baek Yuri served as both a navigator and a living detection system and router all in one. They reached the Cho clan headquarters in 40 minutes. 8 fighters guarded the entrance. B ranks, 3 to 5,000 OM each. Hae-jin didn't stop. He walked straight toward the gate. The first guard stepped forward and raised his hand for a blocking technique. A silver ring, a mirror. The guard was sent flying into the wall by his own block. Second, third, fourth, each attacked, each got it back. Fifth, sixth, seventh. The 8th didn't attack. He saw what had happened to the 7 before him. He stepped aside and let him pass. Hae-jin entered the Cho clan headquarters, a marble hall, stairs leading down, -1, -2, -3, the 6th capsule, code 4771. The door opened. The room was white, cold. 6 capsules along the wall, 4 empty, 1 with something dark inside. The 6th. Hae-jin approached. The glass was fogged up from the cold. He wiped it with his sleeve. Ha-min, his brother, 20 years old. His face was pale, calm, as if asleep. On his chest were thin scars from blades, the 1,000 blades of the crane, those very ones. The monitor on the wall showed vital signs at 3%, cryostasis stable. Hae-jin stood in front of the capsule and watched. A silver ring glowed in his pupil. He placed his palm on the glass. The cold traveled through his hand into his chest, and he felt it. A response. Faint, like an echo in an empty hall. His mirror reflected something from the capsule. Not an attack, not a technique, a connection. His brother was the other side of the mirror. Hae-jin didn't understand what that meant, but he felt the connection like a taut thread between them. 2 shards of a single whole. He said quietly that he had come, that he had promised and had come. The monitor on the wall flickered. Vital signs, 3.1%, 0.1% higher than a second ago. Yoon Se-ra ran to the capsule's control panel. She said she could stabilize the stasis, but couldn't thaw him without a medical team. 3% is too low. Thawing him would kill him. Nam Do-hyun stood by the door. He said there was movement upstairs. The Cho clan was regrouping. Baek Yuri looked up through the ceiling with the eyes of a seer. She said they had 12 minutes before the punitive branch arrived. A new unit. Not the cranes. The tigers. 6 of them. All A ranks. Hae-jin took his hand off the capsule's glass. He said his brother would stay here. For now. Because defrosting would kill him. But now, Hae-jin knows where he is, knows the code, and knows the connection works. He turned toward the exit. The 4 of them ascended to the surface and exited through the western wall of headquarters. Hae-jin breached it with a single template from the archive. Piercing whirlwind, 32,000 OM. The wall crumbled. They stepped out onto the streets of a capital. Sunset, an orange sky, and there was a rift in the sky. Hae-jin looked up. Everyone looked up. A crack in the sky, thin, black, like a scar on the fabric of reality. A figure was descending from the crack, huge, in black armor. 4 eyes burned red, horns, a cloak of dark energy. The pressure emanating from the figure pinned passers-by on the 3 nearest streets to the ground. People fell to their knees. B ranks lost consciousness. C ranks clung to the walls. Magul, the Lord of Demons, in person, on the side of humans for the first time in 1,000 years. He descended onto the pavement in front of the Cho clan headquarters. The ground cracked beneath his feet. He stood between Hae-jin and the clan building. He turned his head toward Cho Tae-san's VIP motorcade, which was just pulling up to the headquarters. The motorcade stopped. The door didn't open. Magul spoke. His voice swept through the city like an earthquake. Every screen on every street in the capital picked up his words. The arena's broadcast systems were still operational, and the cameras following Hae-jin were broadcasting live. Magul told them not to touch his mirror. He said that otherwise they would all burn in his place. His word. He said, in his place. Not together, in his place. Hae-jin stood before the Demon Lord and did not move. The silver ring in his pupil glowed. Magul turned to him. 4 red eyes looked into 2 human ones. The Demon Lord's pressure crashed down on Hae-jin. Not an attack, a gaze. The weight of a being that had lived 1,000 years and ruled the dimension. The mirror did not activate. It was not aggression. It was recognition. Magul spoke softly. So softly that only Hae-jin heard him. He said he had been waiting. Hae-jin stared at the visor of the black armor. In the reflection, he saw his own face. And in the pupil of the reflection, 2 silver rings glowed. 2. One was his. The second was not. The second was older, ancient. It had burned for 1,000 years, waiting for someone to look into the right mirror. Baek-uri, behind him, whispered that all the lines of probability had just changed. All of them. Every single one. She said that before, one line led onward. Now, none of them lead where they used to. Now, all the lines lead to a single point, into the mirror. Hae-jin didn't take his eyes off Magul. Magul didn't take his eyes off Hae-jin. Between them burned a connection 1,000 years old. A loop, conceptual, indissoluble. As long as Hae-jin is alive, any damage to him will ricochet back to Magul. As long as Magul is alive, the mirror cannot reach T3. They were locked within each other like 2 reflections between 2 mirrors, an endless corridor. And somewhere in that corridor, his younger brother slept with 3% of life. The other side. Magul turned and climbed back up to the crack in the sky. The crack closed behind him. The pressure vanished. People on the streets began to get up. Screens throughout the city showed the same thing. Hae-jin's face looking up at the sky, and 2 silver rings in his pupil. One was his. The other was not. Nam Do-hyun stood nearby and said nothing. Yoon Se-ra stood and said nothing. Baek-uri stood and looked at the lines that no longer diverged. Hae-jin lowered his gaze. He looked at his hands, the hands of a porter, calloused from carrying boxes, the hands of the T1 Concepts Tyran, the hands of the man to whom the Lord of Demons had come in person to say a single word. He waited. He turned to his team. He said they had little time, that the Council of 7 had seen Magul, that the clans had seen his numbers, that now everyone knew the mirror existed, that now everyone would want it. The Imperial Council, the clans, the demons, and one of them knew the great secret, knew that Magema the mirror was not Magema, but a shard of the first mirror, knows that his brother is the flip side, knows that Magul is not an enemy, but a prisoner, and that someone has been selling people to demons in exchange for essence since the beginning of the Day of the Rift. He said that the first arc is over. Cho Gan-u is broken, publicly, forever. His brother's body has been found. The connection has been established. But the second arch has already begun, and it is larger. He looked at the sunset over the capital. Orange light lay on the rooftops. Somewhere in the Imperial Council, right now, 7 people were sitting at a table and deciding what to do with the porter who had become the tyrant of the concept, with the mirror that subjugates the altars, with the Lord of Demons who came to protect that mirror. Hae-jin clenched his fist and felt the second silver ring in his pupil pulsing to a rhythm he didn't recognize, a foreign rhythm, ancient, millennia old, the rhythm of one who had been waiting. And something inside Hae-jin, not a fragment of the other, not erosion, something of his own, deeper than the mirror, deeper than the archive. It stirred in response.